Right now, we want to turn to tariffs because there is a lot to unpack. An upcoming Supreme Court fight. Some are on, some are paused. And how is this really affecting all of us? Former auto supply chain executive and host of the Automotive Leaders Podcast, Jan Griffiths. She joins us in Studio C to break it down for us. And Jan, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us here on The Pulse.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so look, we need a progress report on the tariffs. It's like whiplash. One day we're saying this tariff is on, then this one's off, this one's paused, now it's wait 90 days. Right now, as of tonight, where are we with tariffs?
Well, there's a lot in the news over the last couple of days about Trump's visit to the UK and what's happening in the UK. So there is a technology prosperity agreement that's in place right now between the UK and the US. And they're talking about $350 billion worth of investment. Again, deals are frameworks. You know, the detail is yet to happen. So we're seeing a lot of these deals coming off with these frameworks, but we're not seeing the detail behind it. Now, what we do know, hard facts. First of all, timeline-wise, looking forward, President Trump has a phone call with President Xi of China tomorrow, 9 a.m. Washington time.
All right.
Now, the timeline is very important here because November 5th, we've just heard November 5th, that the Supreme Court will hear the arguments on whether or not the tariffs are legal.
And I find this to be very interesting because essentially right now, this Supreme Court hearing is going to be really important. It's questioning the president's authority when it comes to imposing tariffs.
Yes.
Now, this president said, I'm going to use an emergency power to impose these tariffs. So something called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act,
yes.
right? So it's one of his tools in his tool chest.
Yes.
So this Supreme Court's going to have the decision whether or not what he's done constitutes something that should have been done under this particular act. What's the viability for the president to move forward with his tariffs after the Supreme Court sees it? If
the Supreme Court says yes, you can go ahead. Of course, everything's fine, right? If they say no, keep in mind that the IEEPA, which is what you just described, the Emergency Powers Act, that's just one part of tariffs. So there are what we call sectoral tariffs. So you hear Sector 301, Sector 232. Don't worry about the terminology. But that means that they went through, if you will, the proper process, going through Congress, hearing from different stakeholders, making sure that people agree on the scope of the tariffs and who's involved and when they start and when they end.
Sure.
All the details are worked out with sectoral tariffs. But tariffs that were implemented by President Trump under the Emergency Powers Act, remember we went through that time months ago when it was 20% one day and 15% the next.
And the numbers kept going up and down, right? Yeah.
Those are the tariffs that are in question.
Got it.
And normally Congress would have approval for those tariffs. And Congress has just extended a rule, basically giving Trump an extension on the rule to do what he wants with tariffs through to March of 2026.
You know, it's such an interesting time that we live in where people look at everything in the framework of what they know today.
Yes.
But if we look at history, we understand that, of course, the first term President Trump put tariffs into effect that President Biden actually brought into his term and actually said, hey, you know what, Mr. President Trump, I agree with you. I think these tariffs should remain. So it's not just a Trump thing to do the tariffs, right?
It absolutely is not.
Yeah.
And what you'll hear a lot of business people talking about, and particularly in automotive, even President Sean Fain from the UAW
He's
will
a fan
say,
of the tariffs.
But be very careful when you hear him talk, listen to his words. He'll say he's a fan of targeted tariffs, focused tariffs, when they're used in the right way. So what you see coming through with these sectoral tariffs, they're used for a particular sector or industry, whether it's steel, whether it's automotive. So it's very, very focused. These other tariffs, these retaliatory tariffs that we're talking about, are on everything for this country and that country.
And that's where the price gets run up for a lot of important things that we want to buy.
Exactly.
I do want to ask you kind of like where we stand relative to buying things. Dishwashers, cars, all of those things. The last time I talked to you, you said you might want to get that stuff done now because the tariffs haven't quite been slapped on. Now we're talking about some tariffs that are in place.
Yes.
The crates that are coming in, the shipments that are coming in, are those going to be the more expensive things that are coming from other countries right now?
Yes. Whether or not the consumer will feel the pain is yet to be determined, because the company that's bringing those products into this country, they have to make a determination if they're going to absorb the pain of the tariffs or if they're going to pass it on. Right now, we are seeing a lot of companies that are absorbing the pain. We had General Motors talking about a $1.1 billion hit to profits because of tariffs. So some companies are sucking it up.
If you're a big enough company to absorb that cost, then perhaps you just kind of limit profit sharing checks and other things like that. But if you're a small or medium-sized business, that's something that it's hard to absorb, isn't it?
You're hurting. You're in a lot of pain. From all my conversations with small businesses, they're all hurting. Recruiters, headhunters, these kinds of people, businesses are frozen. They're not making that hiring decision that they originally had on the table because they don't know, there's still a level of uncertainty in the business.
Sure. This is an interesting time. And Jan Griffiths, we always thank you for putting it into perspective for us here. And of course, this president and many others have said, look, over the course of time, this is good news, but what will be the short-term pain, we'll have to see, of course, and we'll be watching it with you and your eyes on it as well. Jan Griffiths, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.